everyone. Welcome back to Today in Tech. I'm Julia Beauchamp, and I am here with Computer World's executive editor, Ken Mingus, as well as Macworld executive editor, Michael Simon. We are live on Computer World's LinkedIn page, as well as on our YouTube channel, IDG Tech Talk. So if you have any questions, comments, things you want to say while we are talking, please do let us know either in the comments on LinkedIn or the live chat on YouTube. So we all know there was an Apple event on Tuesday. We talked about it last week. There was, some things that we expected, some things that were relative surprises. And I think relative is kind of like the operative word here. But one of these relative surprises is the new Mac Studio. So I wanted to take today to talk about, what it is, what it isn't, who it's for, and like who really won't get any use out of it. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about the M1 Ultra chip as well. So let's actually start with the new chip. So it's not an M2. It's the final part of the M1 lineup. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what are the stats? Like, it's how much more powerful is it compared to the other one, the Pro and the Max?
Yeah. All right. So quite literally, it's two M1 Maxes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like Apple literally took the M1 Max, got some duct tape,
UltraFusion,
tied them together.
That's actually part of the big story, though. Go ahead. Go ahead.
And so everything about the M1 Max is doubled. You got 20 CPU cores, 64 GPU cores, and up to 128 gigs of RAM. Everything is also the neural engine, 32 core neural engine. Everything is double.
But it doesn't double the power used, right? It doesn't require twice the power.
No, I mean it's more power, but it's not anywhere near twice, and it's not anywhere near what similarly spec'd chips from Intel and NVIDIA and AMD require. So yeah, it's quite remarkable. It's massive. That's why, so last week the Mac Studio was leaked, so to speak. So we knew there was a Mac coming. We knew there was something Mac related at this event. Some people said the 27-inch iMac. Some people said the Mac Mini. Some people said the MacBook Air, the next version of the MacBook Air. Rumors were kind of all over the place, and then this thing landed on Friday. 9to5 Mac got the exclusive on that and said, "Hey, this is what Apple's working on." They didn't quite say it was coming on Tuesday, and then Bloomberg got the ball rolling on Sunday, saying, "Hey, yeah, this is coming out on Tuesday." But so when I saw the pictures of it, we were talking in the Macworld Slack channel. I said, wait, so if this is obviously Apple Silicon, why the heck is it so big? Why is it so tall?
Mm-hmm.
Because if Apple has shown us that, the MacBook Pro, yes, it's a little thicker than the previous MacBook Pros, but not anywhere near double the size. And with the thermal requirements of the chips and the way Apple does their thing, like that, it seemed like, what the heck? Why is this so thick? And Apple showed us. For one, the chip is ridiculous. And for two, there's a big giant blower inside to keep it cool and to keep it quiet.
Yeah, it's the thermals. It looks like two Mac Minis kind of stacked on top of it.
Yeah, like 2 and change, kind of. It's a little more than two, but yeah, it does. And the design is, it's nothing special, but it doesn't have to be special because what's inside it is what everyone who can afford one has wanted for a long, long time. They haven't had a machine like this since like 2005, I want to say. Like those PowerMac G5 towers that were kind of affordable, a couple $1,000s, and gave you tons of power, were, looked great on a desk or under a desk. They were big, under a desk. Apple hasn't really made that in a while. The Mac Mini came along. The Mac Mini isn't that machine.
Yeah.
It's a low-end, budgety Mac. It starts at $700. It's good, but it's not this. So if you were that person, you got the Mac Mini, the Intel Mac Mini, which you're not going to buy. And then you have the Mac Pro, which is $6,000. So you were like, all right, so now what? So now this thing comes along. It's like, okay, if you have $2,000 to spend or $4,000 to spend, you can get this ridiculously cool little kind of workstation caliber machine that fits right under your monitor.
It starts at $19.99 for the M1 Max chip. Yeah. Is it $35.99 or $39?
For $39.99 for the Ultra.
Okay. Yeah.
So maybe this is kind of just more like, of it can be theoretical or hypothetical or speculative, but who is this? Well, I mean, I guess we can ask too, like, who did Apple say that this Mac Studio is for? Because it's not a Mac Mini, it's not a Mac Pro. What types of people besides, you have $2,000 or $4,000 to spend?
Well, it's for a creative professional, or someone who does a lot of video work, photo stuff, mainly creative work that requires a ton of bandwidth and processing power. But, you don't have $6,000 to spend. And even if you did, you'd be crazy to buy one right now. So you're kind of stuck. Yes, the Mac Mini is good, very good. But if you're doing video renders and you're, working with big giant photos and things like that, it's not enough. Plus, it maxed out at 16 gigs of RAM. So you're very limited on that Mac Mini end. And again, the Mac Pro is just too much. So this is that in-between device between the super, super high end and the super, super low end. It's almost literally in the middle. We got the Mac Mini for $700 and the Mac Pro for $6,000. This is between 2 and 4.
Right.
So that's who it's for. Now, there is a whole nother subset of a buyer that wants something between the Mac Mini and the Mac Studio. And I think that's coming too. In fact, I just wrote about that this morning. I think there will be an M1 or M2 Pro Mac Mini, because if you notice, Apple conspicuously left the M1 Pro out of the Mac Studio, Max or Ultra. So it's graphical stuff. Like, they're targeting video work, photo work, podcast work, all that stuff, all that creative stuff is what this is for. And then you have the Mac Studio Studio Display to go with it, which is also that type of stuff. People who really have those color demands. They need to,
right.
It's not as color accurate as the Pro Display XDR. I mean, the Pro Display XDR is $5,000,
mm-hmm.
but it's a nice display. $1,600, a little expensive. I wouldn't buy one. It's a little pricey, but and you don't have HDR or ProMotion, so it's a lot. But it has a 12 megapixel ultra wide camera. It has center stage in it. It has microphones in it. Hey Siri support in it. It has really good speakers. So it's good. And if you're looking for that thing, if you have a budget of $5,000, now you can get a really good display, a really good Mac with some money left over.
Michael, any sense that maybe this is going to take the place of what we're assuming was going to be the iMac Pro? Do you need an iMac Pro if you've got this and the display?
Yeah, well, they got rid of it, so right after the event.
Right.
So, all right, so the event wrapped up, and John Turner said, our Apple Silicon transition is nearly complete. There's one left, the Mac Pro, and everyone was like, well, wait a minute, there's another one left, isn't there? And as soon as that website went live, that 27-inch iMac was gone.
Yeah.
Nowhere to be found. So, yeah, this is the rumors of that. Because if you're looking at supply chain rumors, this is an iMac. There's an A13 inside it. There's a web camera. There's speakers. There's microphones. So if you're looking at parts, it's a 27-inch iMac, right?
Mm-hmm.
An expensive one.
But it's not. Well, you don't look at price. You're just looking at parts. Yeah. What Apple's ordering.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
Right? So it looks like Apple's gearing up to release this. We had heard rumors of the 27-inch iMac. We've talked about it on this show. Like, Apple has a 24-inch iMac. Why do we need a 27-inch iMac too? Because they're kind of the same. Yeah, it would be faster, but we were hoping the 27 would become like a 30. Mm-hmm. Now that 27 makes a whole lot more sense because it's its own display, and it can go with a MacBook and an iMac and obviously a Mac Studio and a Mac Mini, whatever you need. It's there. I wonder
if you could take a Mac Studio and plug it into like an OLED TV and have like a super screen.
Sure. It has HDMI and it has Thunderbolt. So yeah, sure. Yeah. If you have the connection, the cable.
Yeah. But what's also interesting though, and we also are now getting some clarity in terms of what Apple is planning for its chips.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the M1 Pro, the M1 Max, and the M1 Ultra. I don't think there's going to be an M1 Platinum Ultra Magic.
Yeah, Turner said when he said this is the last chip. He said we have one last chip in the M1 line. So that's it. There's 4 of them. This was a surprise. We didn't expect this chip.
Yeah.
We had heard rumors that there was a, for lack of a better word, overclocked M1 Max, which is really what this is. And we had also heard rumors of a dual die chip and a dual processor machine, all that stuff.
Mhm.
But we didn't hear M1 Ultra, and the way Apple did it, I mean, it's crazy. It's 20 cores. I mean, it's nuts.
There was a real Johnny Evans wrote about this for us on Computer World, and I was looking at a piece from Ben Bajarin. I think it might have gone up today, talking about and I don't understand all of the details of the infrastructure of chip design, but he was very impressed. They were both very impressed by the way Apple is working to connect these two.
Yeah.
You know, the M1 Max and the M1. Is that, I think it is called Ultra Fusion or something like that.
Ultra Fusion, yeah.
And it basically, it seems to me like it opens the door for, okay, you've got Ultra Fusion between 2 chips. Why couldn't you have it between 4?
Of course, and that's probably what the Mac Pro is going to be.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's remarkable that Apple created a brand new chip without creating a brand new chip, right?
Right.
I mean, that's in itself a feat. And if I'm Intel, I am shaking in my boots because it's like, oh my God, every time we think we catch up, they leapfrog us, they lap us.
Well, you know, and the interesting thing is too, you know, and Ben made this point, is that yes, Intel can come up with a desktop chip that might theoretically be slightly faster or somewhat faster, but that's not the ball game Apple is playing.
Right.
Apple's playing the performance per watt game. You know, we can give you X number of cycles or calculations or whatever, but we're keeping the heat and the power consumption way down.
Right. And you can say, well, it's plugged in, so it doesn't matter. It does matter because you don't want that fan spinning if you're doing short tasks.
A lot of these things, that's a lot of electricity.
Yeah.
If you've got a farm of these things, that adds up quickly, and the savings will add up.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's crazy. I mean, so we have one benchmark online that was floating around, and as expected, the single core is the same as the M1 because it's an M1, but the multi-core was just bonkers. It was comparable to like AMD's 64-core Threadripper machine, which costs like $2,000 for just the chip. I mean, it's what Apple's doing here is just absolutely remarkable. I'm sure Tim Cook fields calls every single day from little PC makers saying, "Hey, can we buy that chip from you? You get a license to it at any time?" Because it's like
he tells them all no, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, of course he does. I mean, this is Apple's.
Just to be clear.
I mean, this is their advantage now. We thought the Mac was dead 18 months ago or 20 months ago before the Apple Silicon transition. We were talking about the next phase. Steve Jobs, Mac PCs were trucks. Post PC transition, not anymore. You know, we are absolutely, the Mac is absolutely back at the top of the food chain.
I agree.
So what kind of, comes next in the lineup? Like we've established, the M1 Ultra, that's the final, iteration just in the M1 specifically. So, I mean, intuitively, I would think eventually there will be an M2. And is that like, I don't know, pattern of adoption, I guess, going to follow something like, M2 in the Airs, and then, the Pro and the Max and the MacBook Pros, etc. So that's question one. And then my question two is, I mean, Mike, you mentioned, or maybe it was you, Ken, the Mac Pro could have, 4 of these M1 Max chips. So that would equal 2 M1 Ultras, just to do some quick math. But like, where does that fit in? Like, what do you see being, I don't know, I guess just sort of like the nomenclature. Like, is that going to be like in a class all of its own?
I think so.
You could have an M2 Ultra or M1 Ultra Duo or something like that.
You could. I mean, I'm not 100%. We've talked on this show before that maybe the Mac Pro is its own thing.
Sure.
AMD does it with Threadripper. Intel does it with Xeon. Like, they have their own names for the chips that are, not for mere mortals. So maybe Apple has its own name, because they did say this is the last chip in the M1 family. They said that.
Yeah.
So they could do, a dual core Ultra, which is technically not a new chip, but I don't think so. I think it's going to be something even different. And well, all right, to answer your first question, yeah,
okay.
All of these things should get an M2, a sequel, if you will.
Yeah.
The MacBook Air and the Mac Mini, the low-end Mac Mini, will get the M2, I assume. MacBook Pro, M2 Pro, M2 Max, M2 Ultra, all those things. Apple has had a history of neglecting updates, if you will. So they'll come out with the Mac Mini, and then 3 years later they'll update it. They don't have to worry about that anymore. Like they can just, like the iPhone, every year it gets a new chip. Apple can just do that whenever it feels like it. The M2 is going to be an M1 just a little bit faster. The M3 is going to be a 3-nanometer architecture. They're already working on these things as we speak.
Mm-hmm.
They're not just sitting in a room right. Okay, what do we do next? They know what's next. They're probably 5 years out. So all of those things, they're not going to get events. It's not going to be huge introductions. They'll just be one day we'll wake up and there'll be the M2 Mac Mini or whatever it is. The second part of that question, the Mac Pro. So at the end of the presentation, John Turner said, and that leaves us with one Mac left in our Silicon transition to Mac Pro, but that's for another day. It was a really kind of coy teaser, but it also leads me to believe that they know, like, this stuff is cool, just wait, because those people, that's a totally different crowd. M1 Ultra is great for what it is, and I'm sure there's a lot of Mac Pro buyers who can switch to that machine, but the real super high-end Apple users are going to get a treat at some point. Maybe it's WWDC, maybe it's November, maybe it's next year. I don't know, but there's something coming that we can't even, like the Mac Studio, the M1 Ultra chip in the Mac Studio is mind-blowing. And we just got the M1 Max 6 months ago. And it makes that look like child's play. Right? I mean, it's like literally twice as fast as the fastest chip Apple has ever made. A $4,000 Mac Studio is as fast as a $50,000 Mac Pro. It's nuts. So I think that they have in store for the Mac Pro something that is, just completely different than, maybe it is modular. Maybe they found a way to do things differently. Who knows? Because it's a different class of user.
Right.
So, like if they offer up a sealed box with the faster chip, I don't know if that's good enough. It's also a little bit redundant now with the Mac Studio. So, we'll see. We'll see what they do. But that tease at the end was real enticing.
In terms of the timeline, Michael, I'm curious because when they started rolling out Apple Silicon, they said the transition they expected to take a couple of years. And we'll be coming up on a couple of years this fall, right?
Well, depends on what you look at.
Well, when did the 13-inch M1 MacBook Pro?
November. So you can say it was 2 years from the announcement of the transition, which was in June of 2020, or 2 years from the arrival of the first M1 Max, which was November of 2020.
Right.
Either way, it's this year.
Yeah.
Honestly,
end of the year, though, don't you think?
Yeah, maybe, but honestly, there could not be a Mac Pro, and no one's going to care because it's a different machine. In fact, on the day of the event, they added another option for a GPU, an AMD GPU. They upped the base storage to 512, and I think they raised the base processor. So the Intel Mac Pro isn't dead by any stretch. There are people who need that machine.
Mm-hmm.
Even after the Mac Studio, I'm sure there are people who buy it because it's a specific user. There's no Mac enthusiast that's going to buy that machine on a whim. Well,
right.
Maybe. There might be some. Most of them aren't. They might look at it and say, wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
But even if you handed them $6,000, like, there's no point. I wouldn't know what to do with the Mac Pro. I wouldn't know what to do with the Mac Studio, to be honest.
Yeah, I know.
If you gave me $4,000 and said you could buy anything you want, I would not buy that because what the hell am I going to do with it? Like, it's lost on me. So it's a different type of Mac person.
Mm-hmm.
And, they have different needs and I'm real curious. And we said it last year. It's the one that I'm most interested to see.
Yeah.
Because, like, if this is what we're getting in this consumer semi-pro space, I mean, what on earth are they hiding for this Mac Pro?
Yeah. So, yeah, maybe in a year, a WWDC announcement would, like, it seems intuitive, but
they could tease it there. They've done that
a
couple of times already where it doesn't come out until January of the following year,
Right.
but they give us a look at what it's going to look like, what it's going to do. that is a perfect time for that, I think. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you both so much. I think lots of good info about, the new stuff and who can, actually
Wait, hold on.
benefit from
Ken,
using
did
it.
you order 2 or 3 studio
I
displays?
did not. No, I'm with you, Michael. I'm at the point now that I mean they've blown past even my perceived needs. I mean, as a reminder, I've got the big MacBook Pro with the M1 Max in it, and so my editing is much faster now, and my chats and video goes just fine. I mean, I'm in the same boat you are. What would I do with
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
I love the idea of a Mac Studio and the Mac Studio display replacing my company iMac. Maybe company people, if you're listening. But
it's only
would I-
$3,600. They can swing that.
So, I mean, I like the idea of that, but it will, but no, that's just overkill, even for me.
Yeah.
I do agree that if they were going to tease it, doing so in front of at an event that is geared toward developers,
Totally.
and for coding and some speed gains and things like
Yeah,
that.
I mean that's the crowd, and that's probably 10% of the people in the audience are the crowd. Like, it's such a niche product, the Mac Pro.
I mean,
Right.
I feel like they even sort of mentioned developers in the like Mac Studio announcement.
It's definitely a developer machine. It's $4,000, and it's crazy fast.
Right.
Yeah, there's nothing that I do on this. I have a MacBook Pro like Ken. I have the 14-inch, and I love it. There's nothing I do that comes close to taxing this machine. The studio would just laugh at me. It would literally go to sleep. Like, half of it would just go to sleep.
It's so
It's like, snooze button.
it'll help you type faster.
Yeah.
You'll be able to type faster.
Yeah, okay.
All right. Well, thank you both so much for chatting. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I guess we'll see what is coming up later in the year. But I think this is a nice overview of what has already happened. So thank you both so much. And thank you all so much for watching this episode of Today in Tech. If you like this video, you can give it a thumbs up. And you can also subscribe to our channel, IDG Tech Talk, on YouTube. If you're watching on LinkedIn, you can head over there. And you can also hit the bell icon so you're notified every single time we post a new video. If you have any questions, comments, first impressions, whether this is for you, whether it isn't, let me know in the comments below. I'm interested to hear your thoughts. Thanks again for watching.